What's up, fam? Welcome to another edition of God Dreamers. It's been a long time. It's been a really long time. But I'm glad that you guys are here, and I'm glad to be here. Starting off a kind of a new series, and today we're doing something a little bit different. It's going to be kind of really conversational. I have a special guest here. Actually, he's going to be asking me a lot of questions, so I'm going to kind of give him the reins to ask questions. But we're going to be talking about something really cool. We're going to talk about storytelling. We're going to be talking about, biographies, personal biographies, and the importance of doing them for families. We're going to talk about all these great things that you can do, some of the tools, some of the resources that are available, and basically we're just going to have a good time. So without further ado, Yaniv
Yes.
Feldman,
Yes.
how you doing today, man? Good to see you. Good to have you on God Dreamers.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of your podcast series,
What?
It's been a while, right?
Yeah,
You've been
I've been kind of like took a
working.
sabbatical and doing some things behind the scenes.
So I'm glad to be one of the first, if not the first, I don't know, to kind of re-engage, this session. And it's good that you're having me here. We just work together in Artpreneur. If you want to say some words about what it is to those who are following you closely but don't know about your huge contribution to Artpreneur,
So Artpreneur, I'll say something briefly. Artpreneur, we started doing this several years back. We work with an organization called FACE, which is Fine Arts and Crafts Entrepreneurs. And so over the last several years, we've been doing an annual event that really showcases the creative space, but also the entrepreneurial space. And so we've kind of combined those two spaces into one event. It's a two-day event. It's a Friday, Saturday, normally in April timeframe. I think the third week in April. And so we've been doing this for the last couple of years, and each year it's been growing. So this year we had it at Trillith. So if you guys are not familiar with Trillith Studios is in Fayetteville, and it's one of the largest studios in Georgia, and that's where a lot of the big time Marvel movies are produced. Some of the Infinity Wars, all the action movies, down the street from here. So anyway, the town of Trillith has this space. So we've been meeting there the last 2 years. So it's been great. So if you guys are artists, not necessarily just being a singer, but if you do fine arts, you do crafts, you need to come out, and we'll be talking more about that a little later on. But this is how I met Yaniv. Both of us kind of work behind the scenes, but this year he had a platform. He actually did a session talking about AI, and I've talked about podcasting in the past. But yeah, man, it's been a great event out every year. It's great. It's getting better and better. It's growing, and so we'll have some more information about that in the coming months. But if you want to know more about it, you can always go to the FACE website, which is just faceithink.org. And you can learn a little bit about that, and like I said, it'll be sometime next year in April. So we'll see how it goes.
Hopefully, there's a link somewhere.
Yeah. There's a link. Yeah, I'll put a link in here so you guys can click on that and find a little bit more about the event. So
right, yeah, it was fun talking about AI, and I love talking about it. It's like filled our business, but that's not the topic for today. The topic today is about storytelling. Mm-hmm. I mean, specifically biographies, but let's talk about a little bit about the stories. You just told a beautiful story about Artpreneur. And if you think about it, everything in our lives are, filled with stories everywhere you look. Let's think about younger age, okay? We were kids and we had to come up with an excuse why we didn't do our homework. So I don't know.
Oh man, I don't want to talk about that.
Right? You're facing a teacher and you're like, my dog ate my homework. You heard of this excuse, right? Yeah. That's a beautiful story. Short, but it's full of kind of, the essence of a story. You have there the drama. You have there the current situation where you're facing the teacher and you're telling the story because it brought me not to do my homework, and hopefully that excuse can get you out of things. Now, not necessarily that we tell story in a bad way. You told a beautiful story about Artpreneur. Companies will tell story with as little or as much as they can. If you have a product and you read on the side of the product, in the supermarket, this product is made from salt that is found in the Himalayas, and it takes special way to process it to bring it to you in a special way. That is a beautiful story.
Yeah,
right.
It is.
So, and you can probably think about beautiful stories. I want to kind of shift in, from companies that into your own kind of reality, where years back you told me that you interviewed your parents. So if you can tell me a little bit about what brought you to collect stories from your parents, like why?
Yeah.
What's your why about?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question. It was kind of weird because I wish I had known this earlier. Like with my grandparents, because they were just deceased now. But so I didn't get a chance to talk to them. But it was later on. I guess I don't know what triggered it, but I felt like my parents would, like on occasions would share a little snippet about their life growing up. Like my dad grew up in the Bahamas, right? So sometimes he would share about, living off the beach, living, because back in those days, they basically lived in a small little settlement. Didn't really have electricity. They didn't have a lot of things that we have today. And on occasion, he would just share a little snippet about, his life growing up. I was like, it would be great to just find out more about that. And so that's kind of one of the things that triggered it. And, like I said, my mom, same thing. She grew up with humble beginnings. Didn't have a whole lot, but she had a rich childhood, even with the little that she had. And so I just wanted to know more, and I felt like it would be great too to be able to have this story told by them and then share it with the family. Like my kids and my grandkids and the next generation. And so they'll have this picture and this image of their great-great-grandparents that they shared growing, their life growing up, which is probably vastly different from how my grandkids and so forth, the next generation is going to be. So that's kind of what inspired me to do it, because I felt like if I didn't do it, nobody else is going to do it, and those stories would be gone.
So you had a good reason for that. You have what we call it in marketing, the why. You always want to. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. Like all of his books about you need to start with your why, because if you have a good reason, you carry the crowd with you. He's also talking about in his books about many examples. One of them that really inspires is Martin Luther King. He had a why. He had a story to come with it. I don't know if you're editing it or not, this podcast, but if you do, maybe it's time to kind of hear the few first words that goes like, I have a dream that one day, and the rest. Yeah. And he did not advertise anything. He did not pay anybody. He just let the story speak for itself, and he carried the mass. Yeah. And he made the huge change as we know it today. So that's a beautiful story. You tell another story about coming from the Bahamas and then going back, but your sisters, if I remember correctly, needed education here, and that was your story of why they came over here. That's from one of your podcasts. Those of you who follow, go back to past podcasts and hear the beautiful story by Todd. So the story can be written, and a lot of people are doing biographies by writing them. Yeah, which is a great form of delivering the message. For me, reading books is great, but imagine that you have to go through half a page or maybe a page just to describe the way that the face, the facial reactions or the emotions were of a certain character in a book. That takes a lot of reading. Yeah. And video resolved it. So I guess that was your reason for deciding to put it on the video. Oh yeah. It would have been, I won't say impossible, but just to be able to capture the moment, capture the emotions, capture that ambience, that environment. It'd be very hard to capture that writing it down. It actually would be it'll be impossible to be able to capture that. And so so that's what the video is a powerful tool for being able to do that, because now you can see it in action, right? That's why movies do so well. Because they're telling the story and you can see the visuals, you can hear all these sensual things
that you're experiencing to help tell that story. So yeah, video is a powerful tool.
And not only that, you can also hear the actual voice of your father, of your mother. You can hear their giggles when, if there was something funny that made them laugh. You could hear the sadness. You could see their eye movement and like you mentioned, the emotions. So video let us carry a lot more than just a story.
Yeah. That's true because I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
My dad's deceased now, so when I go back and look at those videos, I'm like, it brings back a lot of great memories, you know, and hearing his voice, you know, and being able to see his expression. So it's really cool to see that now that he's no longer here. So it's a good reminder of hearing his voice and things of that nature. Yeah, it's
true,
cool.
True. And you think about how many times you watched or will watch it, but not only you. Your kids, your extended family, the next generations. I mean, that's a gift for them. That's a beautiful gift that if you didn't capture, if you didn't take the initiatives to actually do that, you wouldn't have that. It's gone with the person. You know, they take it with them to the grave. Sorry to say that, but you know, it is true, among the many things that. And let me tell you how, like my why did I get
I want to know.
You know, to
because you have a very interesting background as well. I don't know all the details, but you shared a little bit about, you know, growing up in Israel and coming to the States here, and so what is your why?
Yeah, you mentioned Israel. This is a very loaded subject
I
nowadays,
know.
And we're not going to get to that, at least not now. But I would love to also speak about that. So we have AI, we have Israel, we have a lot of topics to cover. Exactly, the Bahamas. I love it. I mean, if you think about it, we both came from places where people dream of going to the Holy Land. You know, the Bahamas for vacation, the ultimate vacation, if I will. You know, it's like unbelievable. So we all came from places that we know that are very desirable. But focusing on the story of what brought me here, and that by itself is a story. So we're video creators. I started from creating websites many years ago, and then I shifted into like videos because my father had like this old Panasonic camera. You love Panasonic, you know, this is what we're recording.
And they're not endorsing me either, so.
Yeah, so shout out to Panasonic, although they don't endorse. Maybe one day.
One day, yeah.
So he bought like a Panasonic M5. I don't know if you know this old camera. There was M5, M7. It's a camera that you would put on your shoulder because it's kind of big, you know. And he recorded us as kids, and we watched over the years, you know, our childhood. You know, it was fascinating. And then later on, I became a video creator myself, you know, and we were doing in the past years like commercials and events, especially weddings. And I always find myself like intrigued by the stories behind, not what we can see on the camera, not what we document either for businesses or for individuals, but really dig into their story. So I find myself like, you know, I want to know how you met. And they're like, document our wedding. But let's put a little bit of the story of how you guys met. How did he propose to you, you know, for the bride, if I'm kind of in front of her with the camera. And that was my highlight. That I really enjoyed, like, really dig into people's lives. Not in a rude way, but in a nice way. Allowing them to tell their story. And you should see their faces. Wow, yes, that's wonderful. Let me tell you. And they were so motivated to kind of tell their story. And little by little, it sinked into me that I need to capture people's stories. I want to put their own stories on a video with as little touch as I can, like editing it to the very bare minimum, you know. But when we recently started this new stream, this new service, we already filmed few occasions, and the emotions and the stories that come out of a person is unbelievable. They even send messages to the future self or to their kids. Like, imagine a situation. Your kid is becoming an adult, 18 years old, or they're at their wedding day, what if, God forbid, you're not around and you can't congratulate them? You can send a message to the future with the story.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
So things like that really made people, they always say to us, we spoke here on this session, the biography, like, video biography. We spoke about things that we just don't bring, day-to-day conversation with our kids, with our husband, like intimate stories, wonderful stories from their past, very motivational stories. This channel is about motivating people, is about connecting them with God. Think Exodus 20:12. You can check me out later.
Okay.
When it says, respect your parents and you will get like longer life on this earth. It's like you did it. You made it happen. You allow your parents, you respected them so much and their story and their origin to capture their stories, to tell their stories to you so you can live by these stories. This is what it's all about. If you kind of dig into this verse, you would see that this is creating the connection between God, your parents, and yourself, like this beautiful triangle that I get the chills right now to even talk about it. But let me move the mic back to you, and I want to hear your feelings of what it felt like creating it and what it felt like watching it or looking at others watching, your parents on the video.
So when I created it, it's kind of interesting. So I created it not thinking about how it would impact others. I created it just so that we could have it. But the funny thing about it, the end result of that, it was very impactful. And it's not all the families have seen it yet. But I tell you this other situation where my dad, when he was younger, when we were kids, he had his little 8mm camera. Was it 8mm? No, yeah. So, and he used to shoot all these home videos, like of us, when I was maybe like 4 or 5 years old. And so we had a watch party. And so we got all those films and just played them. And then what I did was, since they're on this old, film projector, I had my video camera. This is the old poor man's way of doing it. But I wanted to capture the audio of the interaction of watching it, and so I got my little camera on the side and I captured the projector's image, and then I was recording my dad talking about it, my mom talking about it, us talking about it. So I was able to capture the full moment of us watching these videos that were done back in the 60s, And so the impact was when my kids watching, they were like, they were laughing at me like, "Hey, is that Daddy? Boy, you're funny looking when you're a kid." Or look at my mom. My mom used to love dancing. She used to dance every time if there's music, she'll be dancing. So a lot of the videos, she's always dancing, right? And so you don't really realize the impact until after it's all done, and then maybe later on down the road, as when I'm watching it or when my kids are watching it, it's like, wow, I'm so glad that we were able to capture those moments, because they're really powerful, and it gives you a glimpse of how your parents were at that time, because we all change, right? Over periods of time we all change because of life experiences. But at the time when we were young, my parents were very, very playful, and so it was cool to be able to see them being playful with us, And so as we got older, we drove them crazy, so they weren't as playful. No, I'm just kidding. Get out of my house! But all jokes aside, it's really great to be able to see how they respond and how we all responded as little kids. So yeah.
And I think those stories or those moments define you, because if you think back about the highlights of you with your late parents, like. You would. I hope I said it right, because
no, my mom's still here.
Oh,
yeah. So my dad's gone.
Okay,
my mom's still here. My mom would be 93.
Wonderful.
This year. Yeah.
And
it's still kicking strong too.
And you still have opportunities to collect more stories, I hope.
Yeah, I'm trying. She's stubborn though. She always gives me. My mom's funny because she grew up. I found the house that she grew up in. There was a picture. She gave me this picture of this house with all her sisters. She must have been about maybe 5 or 6 years old. No, maybe a little older than that, 8 years old. And they were in front of this house. And I always wondered where the house was. So, well, house was. I was thinking it was, in one place, but it ended up turning out somewhere else. But I actually used Google Maps because I found information about my grandfather's funeral because he died a long time ago. And I found the information that had the address of where the house was. So I went and I took Google Maps, put that address in, and the house is still there. It's totally different now, but it was just fascinating to see. That's the house that my mom took front of back in the, 1940s. So it was really, really cool to be able to see that. And like I said, with my mom, they moved around a lot as a kid because, a lot of, back in the 30s, there was not a whole lot of opportunities for African Americans. So and they grew up in Georgia. And so my grandfather worked, in the farm and stuff like that. And my grandmother worked for, different houses, being housekeeping and all that stuff. And so they lived kind of a humble life, but, they're still family. And so, yeah.
You used the word fascinating when you said, about the house that you found. And you're fascinating me now with these stories. I don't know your family, but now I want to consume more of these stories. I want to, and I bet that everybody else wants to some extent, to have these stories, because those who are watching us right now, we're telling the story about telling a story. I want to also mention what I started before. Think about these highlights. With your parents. Just sitting together, just this kind of the togetherness of watching the videos. I see the smile on your face. I can tell. These were good moments in your time. Yeah. So you see, stories connect people also, and we need to capture as many as possible. Day-to-day life is kind of very hectic. You have to do so many errands. You need to, those who study, those who work, family life. You never have time. You need to create time. And if there is one message I want to leave people with when they watch us right now, is always, that's my camera, always create time, special time, to discuss, even in short bits, even with documenting it with your phone. You don't need to go to us, Lasting Honor. I didn't mention it even, lastinghonor.com, if it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's where we actually offer you the service of creating it for you, for each and every individual. But take your phone, and just like you with your mom, she's stubborn about it, not a problem. Put a picture in her hand, like the old house. Before that, prepare a camera that it can be hidden. Just record good audio. This is a good tip here. And you can put a recorder, you can connect a wire, wireless, whatever you find. There is small, clip-on, solutions from DJI, from Rode, from you name it, out there, that are not so expensive. You can buy them Amazon, eBay, you name it, and just start to have a nice conversation, even without her knowing that you're having this conversation. I know there are rules for that, so you need to tell the person you're recording that you are recording, but say it towards the end. Worst case scenario, she would say, "No, I don't want to be. I don't want to record this thing. Keep it somewhere safe that nobody see it, and no problem." But at least you have a beautiful story with your grandmother about, this beautiful house.
Yeah.
And another thing is, how do we connect it to art? There is an art of telling a story. When you see a logo, the logo needs to carry a story, right? It needs to say something about what you do. So companies use it. They would use a small slogan just to tell the story, Nokia back in the day said, connecting people. It's 2 words, but it's a story, So all of it together, you need to kind of think of, how do I excite people? If you tell a story about going somewhere, and then keep going somewhere, and then keep going, it's kind of redundant, it's boring, and it's not really, it doesn't make a story. But if you kind of put some questions along the way, like, how did I manage to move to the next step? Or, for example, when we interview people, one of the questions after we learned that they moved to Atlanta, for example, we asked them, why did you move? And that's opening a beautiful big story. For you, I'm sure there is a big story why you moved over here.
Yeah, I had no control over that.
You
It was
see
my
that?
parents.
Well, so they had, it goes back to their generation.
Yeah.
And what if you didn't capture the story of why, guys, did you move to Atlanta? Probably you have it on the video, right? Or maybe different aspects of the.
We moved around a lot as kids. I mean, a lot. But it's great because I have friends and family that are all around the globe. That we've met or interacted with. So it's cool. Yeah, we moved around a lot, but I don't regret it because, like I said, I've met a lot of people through that. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah, the cool thing about the other thing too is that everybody has a story. I mean, and everybody has different experiences. And sometimes you may say, well, my story's not that interesting, but no, it is interesting because it's your story, right? And everybody's story is unique. Our paths go different ways. Our experiences are different. We have some certain challenges in life that we face that we've conquered. We have some challenges that we may not have conquered yet, but yet and still, this journey that we all are going on that has really cool experiences and challenges and just life experiences. And so we all have a story. And, the key thing is now how can we share it? And a lot of times when you share your story, you don't know how many people you're blessed by that, because there are other people that may be going through that particular experience that see that, wow, that person went through that. And I thought I was all alone, but no, they did it and came out of it okay. So it's really good to be able to share your story.
That's wonderful. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And once you open kind of the valve, like let the stories flow, one thing connects to another and it becomes like a endless amount. I tell you what happens with the first experiences that we had professionally into introducing people to the video biography and starting to put them on the video. They are so sure that they can talk about a given set of life experiences. Let's call them milestones in their life. But as they start talking, they realize, oh wait, it reminds me that I have a whole set of different experiences with my friends, and then another one with my traveling and at work. Oh my God, what did I go through at work, different occasions, And then they realize that it's not just one sitting. It needs to become like some kind of a habit for one, to record their own stories, if not for themselves, at least as a gift for the next generations.
Yeah.
And that's it. At that point, I dropped the mic because if we didn't carry the message by now, then probably we missed something,
Yeah, that's true. And I've learned too, as I was interviewing my parents, like you'll say one thing, ask one question, but then it'll kind of like spark and it'll open up this whole other thing that was really not a part of that question, but it was like a nugget that, maybe even like my parents may have forgotten about. I was like, wow, you just brought up a memory that I forgot about, 40, 50 years ago.
Wow.
And so I interviewed my, not only did I interview my parents, but I interviewed my wife's grandmother. And she grew up actually in Fayetteville and the Brooks area. And so her memory was sharp. I mean, she would call out people's names and situations. Like she told me the story one time, it cracked me up, but her mother and father, her father used to leave to go to work and he would go up north. Like they were, like I said, they lived on a farm. And so the father would go north and work for months. And then he'll come back and he'll send money home. And so this one particular occasion he came back and her mom saw him from a distance walk into the house. And so she ran really hard and just grabbed him and picked him up. And it's hugged him real tight, and her father said, "Put me down, woman, put me down, woman." But she was so excited to see him, and so I was like, that's funny. But as she was telling me, I was visualizing it, right? I was visualizing how it all was happening, and so it was just fascinating to be able to hear that story. But that was just one of many stories that she shared with me.
That's amazing. I mean, you're a great storyteller, and here's the thing: people at home may think, do we need to be good storytellers? everybody can tell their own stories, right? So no, the answer is no. You don't need to be a great teller. However, that's why we are there for them. That's why the service exists. Because we want to guide them through telling their story in a wonderful way. But what we realized soon after we started is that we just need to spark. We just need to give them this little kind of question of why Georgia, or what happened to, you mentioned, the grandparents, back there, when they were away for a while, and then the story starts flowing, You're a creator. You not only that you create beautiful music, these podcasts, and so many other things, you create with audio, you create videos, and you tell stories yourself through the videos. Maybe you can introduce a little bit of your. I didn't see that in the podcast, those that I watched.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about those stories that you create. The documentaries that you create.
Yeah. So we're finishing up a documentary now. It's about the life, and I mentioned in one of the podcasts about the life of Dr. Benjamin E. Mays. So a lot of people don't really know about him, but he played a very vital role in the civil rights movement. He was born in the late 1800s. On a farm. He was a sharecropper. His parents were sharecroppers, and so they basically didn't even own the land, but they worked the land. But he didn't want to be a status quo and follow the sharecropping. He wanted to have an education early on as a little kid, and so he was striving to have this education, even with his dad's just not really wanting him to have this education. Not so much that it's kind of weird that back in those days when they felt like people that were educated were tricksters and manipulate and take advantage of people. And so the dad didn't want him to get this education and then be able to be a trickster and so forth. But he was going after education because he didn't want to be a sharecropper. He didn't want to just live like everybody else was living. He wanted to explore the world. And so anyway, he was able to get his education and then went off to Bates College, got his college degree, and then he went off got his PhD, and then became worked at Howard University, and then he went to Morehouse College and became the president of Morehouse College. And so he actually brought Martin Luther King in, mentored him to be the man that everybody knows. This is through Dr. Mays. But the funny thing about it, and this is just one of many leaders that came out of Morehouse at the time. He was there from, I think, late 40s to 1968 when he retired. But we're doing this documentary to kind of really showcase his life and how he affected so many different people. And our generation, unfortunately, don't really know much about him. The older generation do, because he was in that era. But one of the reasons why we're doing this documentary, because we want to bring about greater awareness to his life and legacy. And so we're almost done. We finished up. We shot all the videos. We interviewed a lot of people like Ambassador Young, the mayor of Atlanta, Hank Aaron's wife.
Big hits, yeah.
Yeah. We've been a lot of these, and all these were proteges. These are all people that knew him and worked under him or worked with him. And so we finished up those interviews. We're editing now, and we're getting ready to release this documentary probably in the next few months. And so we spent last 3 years working on this.
Wow,
so
I'm excited.
It's a really cool story. Yeah, and there's some more stuff, some other things that we're getting ready to embark on too.
That kind of touch another point about a missing piece of the puzzle, because we spoke always about telling your own story or your parents' story while they're alive. What about the person that is no longer with us? There's a lot of unfortunate people. I mean, it's the course of nature, that you lose people over time, whether they're your parents or other people, and they're not there anymore for this interview, for the biography. So telling a story about another person, like for example, you can tell a story about your parents as part of your own story, and then inherit it to your kids or to your family and such on. So I would even encourage people to tell not only their story, but the story of the past generations as they collected probably some information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to do that with my siblings. We did it just a little bit on one of my podcasts, but I would like to go back and have us all sit down because it used to be 5 of us, so I lost 2 sisters. And so there's only 3 of us, including myself. And so I would love to be able to sit down and to share some of the stories as we grew up, in our household, and share that with the kids and their kids and so forth. Because that was an interesting experience too, as far as growing up with. I was the only boy out of 4 sisters, and so that dynamic in itself was crazy.
So you got it. You got to have it for yourself. It's okay. You got to have it for yourself because this is something that you may not be able to do later in time. You need to kind of put it first on your bucket list, maybe. Something that I learned, and this is good for those viewers or listeners of this podcast. A dream stays a dream. It never fulfills unless you break it into like small actions, like into small. You actually plan on how to execute this dream, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what they say. And then those actions need to be put a timestamp. So if you put like a timestamp on, let's say, okay, so I'm going to interview my family, create a biography, family biography, let's call it, okay? So in memory of, your sisters and your father and such on. So create already like a plan on how to do that, when to meet with all the family, where to meet with all the family, and then put a timestamp on it to say by August or October this year, with a specific even day in October, we're gonna meet and we're gonna sit together and actually do that. Yeah. Once you put a date into it, it turns into an action, like into something that can be done and will be done. Yeah. So that's why what I recommend to others. We're here to inspire others. So this is it. Take your dreams, break into action items, and put a date into each one of them. It will happen. My promise. Yeah.
So before we close,
yes.
You want to share a little bit about what you do and what your services are?
Sure. Very briefly, because
you want to swap out that, or you're good?
Oh no, I'm good. It's fine.
Okay.
It's you're recording it, so it's good.
Okay.
So thank you for letting me have this stage, but I don't want to take it mostly for what we do. It's not the intention is not of commercial. It's just we spoke about most of the things that we help people do. In general, we help them tell their own story. We create their video biography, and it's kind of funny that I say that we create because they're actually doing it themselves. We bring them to the point that they do it. We start by giving them a little exploration form, a discovery form, if you will, where they feel like very general things, so a few milestones that they can think about in their lives. Then we developed an interesting software that actually takes all these answers of them from the form and make the connections. Just like we have neural connections in our brain, the software actually connects it and outputs like interesting questions that will help us lead them through in the interview. We set a date, like I mentioned, setting a date. Mm-hmm. We set a date with them for when we film it. We meet with them, set a couple of cameras in a nice homey environment in their place or in a studio, wherever they want to do it. And we let them talk and we guide them. We just ask them the right kind of questions. But like I mentioned before, we spark only because once they're getting this spark and the talk starts, it flows. Yeah. And sometimes, in most cases actually, we need to kind of a little bit interrupt and move them back to the root of telling their own story. Yeah. And always the outcome of it is fascinating. They're just sitting there when it's done and they say, oh my God, like we never told these things to nobody. It's our very own, the core of what we believe, what drives us, who we are, where we came from. And they never in their life had a chance to actually do that. So that's what we do. Yeah. Lastinghonor.com. That's where they need to go to actually. Okay. We actually reserve the honor with the O and with the U, just like it's written in the wild world.
So,
okay. So we have that. And thank you so much for giving us the stage for that.
Oh no, my pleasure, man. Thank you so much for sharing. We could go on for hours.
Absolutely.
We got to get you back so we could talk about AI.
Whenever you're ready.
And talk about your homeland too, because I know
Yes.
a lot of stuff's going on in the world in that area. But I've been praying for peace for that whole area.
Same here.
It's been crazy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
So thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your wife in the behind the scenes. She's taking care of it. She's taking care of all the cameras and all that stuff and getting all the good stuff. So
Yes, she's there.
But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Like I said, it's been a while since we've done this. Hopefully, I'm going to be doing more. But if you want to know more about what we do, you can visit us on social media, a YouTube channel, or you can go to our website, goddreamers.com. So thank you again for hanging out with us. Until next time, take care. God bless.